Steam. If you're watching this on a computer of some sort, or you have a computer in general, you probably have Steam installed on it. If you don't, you're either too old to care about any of this bullshit, or you're one of those healthy people who are in shape, for whom video games have never really been your thing. If you've somehow ascended to that level of control over your life, I commend you, though there is the chance that drugs are your thing instead. Scratch that. If you don't play video games, you probably shoot up heroin due to how boring your life has become. Now that we've rid ourselves of junkies, crack whores, and kids who take Flintstones chewable vitamins, let's jump into what we really want to talk about today. Abhorrent release trends on Steam. Whether this is through Greenlight or just released as an official game, there are three sectors of annoying game categories being sold on the Steam store. Medieval games, weeaboo shit, and unique 8-bit indie games. So, often, as some of you may do also, I use the handy-dandy discovery queue feature on the Steam store. For those of you who have short wish lists, here's how it works. Steam looks at your library, and, I can only assume, the amount of hours you spend on certain games, and whatever tags are on its store page. The CIA, I mean Steam, then takes this information and generates a list of games it thinks you'll be into playing and might want to buy. I am in full undying support of this idea's implementation, and I love its concept, as it's made my game wish list grow to over 35. It may be a little off sometimes, what I'm about to talk about, but it often shows me games I never would have found before had I not used it. One thing this queue also does is show me the pure, appalling saturation of subpar, repetitive, and unoriginal content that's been accepted by both the Steam community and staff. The sheer amount of MMORPGs with the same medieval fantasy aesthetic, themes, and time periods is staggering. Before I block the medieval tag in my queue, because I already have the good ones, I'd get more than half of the games in my queue being of a medieval fantasy theme. Mostly, they're MMOs, or third-person games in the style of Diablo, which is not a bad game, and they mostly have mediocre reviews, mixed, mostly negative, bullshit like that. The reason for these appearing so often, I think, is because of the wildly successful few medieval games out there made in the past, such as some of my favorite games, The Elder Scrolls Saga, Witcher 3, Chivalry, Dark Souls, just to name a few, and people's hope of achieving that level of popularity with a half-assed game they made in RPG Maker. The problem is that these quality games are so few and far between that it almost isn't worth it to put your eggs all in that basket. It makes me happy that so many people have that sort of confidence in their own ability, but it's become an overdone theme, and so rarely is there room for new mechanics in those sort of games. What it comes down to is that there isn't much room for innovative gameplay, and that brings a genre down a few notches. One thing I will say before I go on is this. In no way am I trashing Greenlight content creators as a whole. The fact that that group of people can put time and effort into something they believe should be sold for money is great, and I applaud for you. If you make games with no substance purely to rake in cash, this compliment is not for you, and I hope you feel satisfied in your false piles of money. My second complaint about the status of the Steam store is the amount of weeaboo shit overflowing the content walls in Steam. This frothing pile of garbage being poured and spread around the catalog like a fucking sewage milkshake is hiding a lot of quality content behind it. Every prick with a draw-your-own-manga book sitting in their cum jar thinks they can make a quality puzzle/dialogue game with subpar titties and squealing noises they found from their favorite hentai video. The only exception is Hatoful Boyfriend, because who doesn't like a nice pair of great tits? Content creators have even gone so low as to replicate other games already on Steam, only smearing their Naruto bullshit all over the visuals, pandering to a small demographic. An example of this is Sakura Clicker, a blatant copy of games such as Clicker Heroes and Adventure Capitalist, both of which I have an astonishing amount of hours on. Now, just as it is with the medieval theme, there are still opportunities for these games to be enjoyable and quality experiences, such as Nier Automata, an enemy, and whatever the fuck it is, Dynasty Warriors, and Cory in the House for the DS. Yet these are even fewer and farther between, and it's practically hopeless to try and achieve quality in the genre in general. The last decrepit pile of waste I'll discuss today is the influx of, for lack of a better term, Super Mario Bros. Reskins, games whose creators prioritize their impatience higher than visual appeal. Platformers that have clunky, shitty mechanics that are either mass multiplayer shootouts or shittily written fanfiction-esque single-player storylines. This group of games are the biggest problem on Greenlight, and a few too many are flowing through the cracks of the dam and seeing day or Greenlight. The biggest problem seems to be that people are wanting to profit off of the success of other games, to the point of sometimes making games in the exact same style as they used to be in the 90s, with no obvious improvements or changes to mechanics. Like I mentioned earlier, they're practically reskins and shouldn't be allowed to reach the top of the pile. Some, very rare, exceptions to the problem of 8-bit disasters are Hotline Miami, Lisa, and Undertale, all of which are redeemed by their fantastic writing. All in all, the games that I see and become interested in when I watch their trailers on my discovery queue are the games that break their genre's norms, or create an entire genre of their own. If a game focuses on a new mechanic that hasn't been seen before in other games, like Superhot for example, I'll most likely play it for hours on end. A new world and a type of story that hasn't been explored in the medium's past is always a fresh, fun experience and won't be left behind. If you're considering putting your game into the Greenlight cycle to be released on Steam, please really think about whether or not your game does anything new. Are there other games on Steam that are interchangeable with your product? If so, you may want to rethink the way you put it together. Another safe bet is a game that serves as a base for the player to create their own experience as well, with your guidance. Now, I tear into Greenlight like this, but I will say that some of my favorite games, and even a game that is a community which has influenced who I am heavily, Blockland, have reached new levels of sales and support that they never would have reached had Greenlight not been implemented. And for that reason, I think it should stay, but be tweaked ever so slightly. If the system had a higher fee to enter your content into it, and a requirement that a staff member had to look over it before you submit it, it'd be easier to sift out the shit games. Now, if you'll excuse me, I must go play some more Gumboy Tournament. I can't keep it waiting.
Yeah.